Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here and participating in this panel. First of all, my name is Dr. Faye Gerard. Dr. Faye Gerard. I am the International Association of Oil and Gas Producers, which is IOGP. They've been around for 50 years, and I'm the Director of Energy Transition. So thank you for having me here. I'm seconded into IOGP from BP. So about 33 years of experience in oil and gas from an operational standpoint, environmental standpoint, HSE, and strategy standpoint. I'd like to, first of all, welcome you all to this session. We're going to explore the just transition skills challenges for the oil and gas sector as Azure Kazan diversifies its energy economy and industrial base. I'd like to bring my panelists up for discussion. First of all, I'd like to welcome up Ms. Rotunda. Thank you for coming up. While she's coming up, I'd like to just give a little bit about her background. She holds the position as Deputy Director of the Azure Kazan Renewable Energies Agency under the Ministry of Energy. As a senior energy and climate expert with over 20 years of experience, she is actively involved in the development of a regulatory framework to ensure the sustainable use of risk, including hydrogen and its derivatives. Her areas of expertise include national climate policies, GHG mitigation and reporting, as well as emissions trading schemes and carbon offsets. She is the author of a number of scientific papers, mainly focusing on the establishment of MRV systems for methane emissions from oil and gas upstream and midstream operations. Welcome, Raymond, to the panel. Next, I'd like to welcome Ms. Sigmund. She is the focal point for oil and gas UN trade and development from Switzerland. Just a little bit about Sigmund. She's an expert over 30 years with multilateral level experience, specializing in natural capital governance. She has taught economy at the university in France. In the UN system, she has led the development of UNCTAD's program on oil and gas trade, risk management and finance, and forged key partnerships across 30 countries for African Union. She has contributed to the drafting of the Africa Mining Vision, AMV, and played a key role for its implementation through the establishment of the African Mineral Development Center. Now an AU specialized agency where she's led human resource and institutional capacity development. She's currently developing for UNCTAD, a program of just energy transition for oil and gas producing developing countries. Welcome, Sigmund. I'd also like to welcome to the panel Nadia Abid. She is with Bureau Veritas. She is the Vice President of Strategy, Marketing, Sales for CIF, Middle East, Caspian, and Africa. Welcome. She is joined Veritas in 2017, and she is specifically involved in business development, building the marketing communication team, developing the sales team competencies, as well as processes. She is leading the team working on developing a new strategy for the Middle East region with a special focus on energy transition, hydrogen, and renewables. She has over 15 years experience, so welcome to our panel. Finally, I'd like to welcome Nikolay Kasinenko. He is the Director of Oil and Gas Equipment Sales for Turkey, Central Asia, and Koskias for Siemens Energy. So with that, I'd like to sit down and explore with this panel some topics around meeting the just transition challenge of the oil and gas sector. Okay, changing seats here. So let's have a conversation if I can, and jump right in just for time's sake. So I'd like to start with government and industry's role in preparing for the workforce needs. So with that, maybe have a conversation, first of all, around how can Azerbaijan leverage its existing industrial base to support the growth of energy transition and the skills required to drive the sector. Maybe if I can have you start, Linda, that would be lovely.
And thank you for inviting to this very important session actually for Azerbaijan and for Renewable Energy Agency also. We are all aware of the problem and challenges of climate change, global warming, but we know that just transition is also very important. Energy transition is a part of this just transition. For oil and gas industry, which is quite developed in Azerbaijan Republic, it is very important to tackle this challenge in time. In my point of view, there is two trends actually for the decarbonize of oil and gas industry in Azerbaijan Republic. The first trend is to reduce emissions from oil and gas emission itself. Here we use emission reduction targets. Actually, we have resource management, energy efficiency management. We have water management, of course, and of course the use of renewable energy resources to offset this emission. It's really very important. So how we try to overcome oil and gas industry to overcome this problem? Of course, we have the number of agreements, investment agreements signed with our main oil and gas producers. BP, for example, will construct the plant, or solar plant of 240 megawatt of capacity in Jabrail region, in liberated land, to offset emissions from Sangachal terminal. But we're talking about the labor force, how we can qualify the labor force to allow this energy transition. I think the first is very important to understand that here we need certified professionals. So we need in the experts who can at least quantify this greenhouse gas emission and then to propose the solution for reduction. So we need ISO 14064 standard expert also. We need experts involved in energy management. So they should be the professionals in auditing, energy audit. In my point of view, to reduce this amount of energy used by oil and gas industry, and not only oil and gas industry, because we have well-developed also cement industry in Azerbaijan Republic. And of course, there is another approach in my point of view. Many of oil and gas companies right now, they became multi-energy companies. So they try to diversify their work, to produce more biofuel, to produce also hydrogen, to produce, of course, green electricity from wind, from solar, to use in their operation for decarbonization, but also for sale, to diversify their supply actually. So here we need professionals who knows about biofuels production, experts in biology, in chemistry, and taking into account the big petrochemical industry. In Azerbaijan Republic, we have at least methanol plant, we have carbamide plant, we have plant producing polyethylene and ethylene. I think in that direction, we need experts that are able to understand the challenges of the industry to produce green products right now. And our investors already, they are all very interested actually in production of green ammonia, in production of green carbamide, and they sign agreements with the state-owned company of Azerbaijan Republic for the pilot project with Aquapower, for example. So I think this direction should be explored more in depth. And like an agency, our main role here is be in a bridge in between the investors, industry, and the science. That's why we signed MOU, actually, Memorandum of Understanding with the many institutes, universities, to support this transition, to support this bilateral education programs between the UK and Azerbaijan, and also vocational education, the program for vocational education. We came to our agency and we gave our recommendation how we can just move and to improve that kind of program and what we need. And of course, we are now developing our referring to the hydrogen, because all this chemistry, green chemistry, need to understand that they will produce maybe green hydrogen, and that's why we developing right now the first Azerbaijan hydrogen strategy. And this strategy will be announced during the COP29. That main pillar of this strategy will be education also. Thank you very much.
Very good descriptor, especially around the point you mentioned between being the bridge between industry and science. So that's absolutely a great takeaway. I would maybe like to pivot on to another topic around the global perspective. There is a global perspective on energy transition. I'd like to explore that a little bit more. Maybe if I could, Sigmar, talk a bit about what are some of the key capacity constraints preventing commodity-dependent developing countries from fully benefiting from the just energy transition.
Thank you. I would like to start by thanking the organizers for inviting me here, Marlene especially, Pietro, Elise from OGDC. I want to point out that the organization of this event is a mark that how serious Azerbaijan take this issue, of COP29 and the stakes. And I'm truly fascinated by the country that I'm meeting for the first time and the kindness of its people. So thank you. So back to your question. One of the key capacity constraints in the way of commodity-dependent developing countries in taking advantage of the just energy transition is the potential for stranded skills. Most of the time when we talk about stranded is in terms of assets, but in fact the human capital is really at risk. IEA estimates that there is a risk that more than 30 to 40% of the oil and gas jobs can become stranded unless there is investment in reskilling and job transition programs. UN Trade and Development, also known as UNCTAD, for which I work, define a country as commodity dependent as a country where over 60% of its export revenue come from primary commodities. So in fact, the raw material is not, there's no value addition in the export. And this risk, this dependence challenge increase the risk for income volatility, slower productivity, and economic instability. So most of the commodities, the CBDCs, are left behind. And we should make sure that they are not left behind, further left behind because of this transition. So UNCTAD role is to have normative roles, to find a discussion platform where the issue of what means just, how much just is just. So how can we identify the opportunities? So it's really a global opportunity agency and agenda setting organization. So we support these countries in citing the opportunities of the green energy transition by enabling them to adapt their economy, diversify, and implement the necessary transformation to truly capitalize in the shifts. One of the ways of the transition to be just is to build skills up the value chain. As we move up the oil value chain, for instance, skills like project management, engineering, and data analysis become more specialized and transferable across industries, such as manufacturing, agriculture, renewable energy. In contrast, lower-level jobs are more industry-specific and less vulnerable less versatile for transfer. Higher up value chain skills are more universal, enabling easier transition to other sector. So I may estimate that strong skills in oil-dependent countries could result into $1 trillion lost globally by 2030, as fossil fuel workers remain unemployed and underutilized, which is equivalent to wiping out the economy of the entire African continent. So we need a vision, we need a strategy for scaling up skills development in commodity-dependent developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. One of the things I heard you say is around that we need a strategy and vision to focus on this change and just transition for skills in the industry. So thank you for sharing your perspectives. Speaking of skills, I'd like to delve a little bit into certification and standardization if I can. I'd be interested in hearing a bit about how important is standardization and certifications in ensuring the workforce is properly trained and equipped with new industries like the energy transition. Maybe you can give us some perspective on that. Nalia would be interested in hearing that.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the invitation to join the panel. And it's been really quite interesting discussion already emphasized by Rana and Claudine already. I think when we speak about standard and certification, first point, which is quite important, we speak about upskilling people, importance of having people migrating from one sector to another. So how can we enable it? You need to have a standard, a framework, which is aligning the requirement of those new standards with the training provided. So if we speak as example, Rama has mentioned the ISO standards. We are currently speaking about reducing emission, like even if we go a bit forward, why do we go to renewable energy? Because we want to reduce emission. But in order to reduce emission, we need to have a start point. What is my current emission? In order for me to have the same definition of current emission here in Azerbaijan, or in Saudi, or in South Africa, or somewhere in Europe, I'm referring to international standard, ISO 14064, ISO 14044, and other standard which help me define the way to calculate this emission. So why it's important? If I start by having a standard, I'm training the people based on this standard, I'm ensuring that the person who is doing the same work, whether based in Azerbaijan or Europe or in Africa, is equipped with the same specifications, equipped with the same knowledge. And I think when we speak about just transition, it's quite important to ensure that you have the same level of knowledge across the industries. It provides actually the industries as well attractiveness for investment. We saw, if we speak particularly about hydrogen, we see today a lot of talks around the new hydrogen project, but there is very few projects who went to financial closure. Why? Because when you speak to the developer, first point that they emphasize to us, there is a lack of standard. How can I develop a project when banks are not willing to invest in my project because standards are lacking? So standards are required actually, like if I have the workforce which is equipped with the right standard, I can guarantee that the project is developed in a safety manner, a risk manner, which will not as well bring actually problems to the community afterward. If we go as well back, if I speak particularly about renewable sector today, We face actually there is a lot of projects happening globally, but we have as well, if we see the number of persons required, the skills required, we do have a lack of skills currently. So we see as well a lot of standards being developed. If I take the example of wind turbine inspection, maintenance, and so on. If we refer to the Global Wind Organization standards, if I am a developer, I'll make sure while recruiting that I have a person who is certified across those standards, because it helps me making sure that my wind project will be developed in a safety manner. And as well, when we see across the globe, a lot of regulation are coming and so on, based on those standards, and making sure that my workforce are also aligning the requirement of the standards with what can be done as well on the site, actually, and the project phases.
Lovely discussion. I heard you mention that folks jump from sector to sector, and they do. It is important to make sure that we all are utilizing and at the same level of the same understanding of the standards. So I appreciate your input into that. I'd maybe like to pivot, speaking of standards and speaking of certification, let's talk a bit about collaboration. Collaboration is key for energy transition. Cannot be done by one group, can't be done by one person, can't be done by one company. It needs to embrace the world. So I'd like to talk a bit about standardization. Nikolai, I'd like to bring you in on this conversation about how can global companies collaborate to ensure a steady pipeline of skilled workers for a diversified energy economy. What are your thoughts?
Thanks for your words. First of all, I would like to say that we actually discuss emissions, yes, all the time, and I would like to put something that stays behind those words, yes, because before we come to your questions directly, how we can collaborate. Actually, when we talk about the emissions and the ways how we can collaborate, we go to the different types of fuel. And if you see in the rotating, most types of equipment we currently use, we use the natural gas, for instance. And natural gas is basically methane. And when we burn methane, we have CO2. And so we try to go to the hydrogen in this regard to make it cleaner, yes, not to have those emissions. And so we actually have different types of gases which we work with our equipment. And all those gases have different chemical qualities. And what I want to say that if we go down and go deeper to the details, we see how those gases influence the equipment. So each company has to reconsider its strategy of choosing the equipment. For instance, if we talk about the turbines, we need to reconsider how we choose the burners. If we talk about the compressors, we need to reconsider how we choose a compressor, because in every type of equipment, it always goes with some details. For instance, in the turbines, we change the burners. In the compressor, we change the rotors. And we also change a lot of other stuff. And what I want to say, actually, the companies can collaborate by sharing the knowledge how to do it. Because if every single company makes it separately, it needs to pass a very hard and complicated way of learning. That's why, in case if companies can collaborate in sharing those knowledge, somehow creating some libraries, creating some, because actually, one interesting thing to know is that the energy density of hydrogen is only 1/3 of energy density of natural gas. So it means that when you burn the natural gas and when you burn the hydrogen, you need to have 3 times more hydrogen to get the same power heat. So it means that, let's imagine, we just need to have 3 more volumes of fuel. It's detail, yes, but this is very important detail. How we will compress this gas, how we will transfer the gas, how we will, arrange the logistics of this gas. So what I want to say, we talk about collaboration. We talk about how we will cooperate, but we need to go to the details and understand how we share these knowledges. Because let's say, I don't think many people understand that you need to have 3 more times volume of the hydrogen to get the same heat rate. So, in the end of the day, I think everything goes to such details. And let's see, if we talk about the CO2, it's a very heavy gas, it's almost like a liquid. And it also requires different types of equipment that should be used to handle this gas. Let's say to put it on the ground storage. Just for instance, in terms of the mole weight, the hydrogen is 2, the natural gas is 20, and the CO2 is 44. So what I want to say is 3 completely different environments. And coming back to the challenges of the transition and the question of collaboration, I want to say that companies need to create that spatial library of knowledge. Companies need to share the knowledge because some of those gases like hydrogen, they really cause serious issues in transportation, in the pipeline, because this is very diffusive gas and it goes to the structure of metal and damages it. So the long story short, that we need to learn how it works in reality. We need to learn for years because let's say even the single compressor needs to rotate much quicker using the hydrogen, much quicker. So you need to change the rotor, you need to change the seals, you need to change many other internal stuff, which we still sometimes don't know. But when we have this path, when we have this experience, we will. Thank you.
Yes. Very good discussion on sharing knowledge. That is key from a collaborative standpoint. Maybe I can pick up, or you can pick up a little bit more on that. Nadia, would you be interested in talking to us about collaboration?
Yes, actually, when you speak about sharing knowledge, I think what's also interesting to highlight that you have actually a lot of platform as well. There's various actually platform and organization which have industry experts coming together with, I would say, standard experts, I would say in government, like IRENA as example. We see a lot of actually initiatives highlighted by IRENA, which are currently launching various workshops to share knowledge. So, if I go back as example to standards, we are seeing a lot of technical committees which are organized by the ISO, which are actually working together to co-develop standards. We are, our technical experts are part of one technical committee which is really focused on hydrogen regulation as example. So one of the things they've been working on is how to co-develop together with other industry experts the safety standard for developing an electrolyzer, because we used to have hydrogen since long, but having a very large scale electrolyzer was very common, so we need those standards to be co-developed. We are seeing as well various initiatives as well. If I extend talking about ISO, there is also like a working group which is working on various standards regarding CCUS, carbon capture, sequestration and storage and even usage. And I do feel actually, if we have one company developing, it's quite hard because you give as much your knowledge for yourself. But it takes actually a full set of companies working together to get all those standards ready. If we go a bit outside of renewable, like let's say taking chemicals actually, and I think Rana also has mentioned that, we are having currently a very nice collaboration which has been published recently between industry standard, like industry majors such as BASF. We have SABIC, Linde, which kind of compete in some areas, but they joined hands into developing an electrical cracker. I was thinking about how can I reduce CO2 emission if I move to electrical cracking, I'm automatically reducing my carbon footprint. So we see various actually examples of organization working together. We see as well the importance of having the public and private collaboration as well working together, and we saw earlier an example mentioned by the CG, where we have this European Fund for Just Transition, in which actually there is funds to support countries, helping other countries heavily depending currently on fossil fuel to decarbonize as well. So I think all of those initiatives would help us actually reach faster the energy transition, and would not be able to do it if everybody is like working on that separate level.
That's a good point, working together. Very good. Maybe we can answer one or two questions if we have one or two out in the audience. Are there any questions? I see a hand over here, please. Is there a mic so folks can hear the question? Here we go, we're coming with the mic real quick.
Birinci sual ondan ibarətdir ki, hidrogen gazı yanacaq kimi dünya miqyasında hal-hazırda tətbiq olunur. Lakin bu çox bahalı bir prosesdir, bahalı enerjidir. Təmiz prosesdə, yanma prosesində su buxarı alınır. Bu keçidi, yəni hidrogenin alınması prosesidir. Hansı yolla maya dəyərini aşağı salmaq barədə fikirləşirsiniz? Bu birinci sualımdır. İkinci sualım isə, mən bir nümunə gətirmək istəyirəm. Bir vaxtlar kağız bloklar məsələsi gündəmdən çıxarıldı ki, Avropa tərəfindən polietilen bloklara keçirilsin. O vaxtlar düşünmürdülər ki, polietilen blokların parçalanma prosesi necə gedəcək? İndi isə Avropa geri qayıdır kağız bloklara. Bu bizdə təzadlar yaratmayacaq mı? Bax, bunu demək istəyirəm. İkincisi, bir fotosintez prosesi haqqında karbon emissiyası deyirsiniz. Bu karbon emissiyası yox, karbon qazı məsələsidir. Bəzən yoldaşlar karbon deyəndə kömürü nəzərdə tuturlar. Ona görə də xahiş edirəm, terminlər düzgün istifadə olunsun və gələcəkdə bizi fotosintez prosessiz qoymaq barədə düşünün ki, biz oksigendən məhrum olacağıq. Bunlar nəzərə alınsın. Çox sağ olun diqqətinizə görə.
Made a lot of comments around energy transition, spoke about how sciences, I'll use a scientist, how back at some period of time we used to use different materials. We moved to recyclable materials. Maybe from a materiality standpoint, maybe we can talk about how the change of materials, how do we bring along the workforce to adapt to the changes in energy transition? Anyone want to talk about that?
Excuse me. I understand the question is regarding the metal, the materials changes. I would like to say, I mean, again, just regarding the rotating type of equipment we usually need, yes, the turbine compressors. We have a lot of significant changes in the equipment. I would rather say we need to make a completely new equipment. Because if you take a gas turbine, if you take a gas compressor, it has piping. And if you just use the regular piping, it's not going to work. So metal must be more solid, metal must be different. And to go in all those to the details, let's say to compress the hydrogen, which is basically used, you need to have twice higher speed of water, about twice higher speed, to pump more, like 3 times more volume of gas. It means that your seals must be connected very, very good. So we consider actually every single detail of material to see if the formula will work or not. And then we decide if we need to leave it or switch to another one. So, I mean, visually it will look the same, but internally it will be different equipment with different materials.
Very good. Thank you for that response. Thank you for the question. We're almost about at time. I would like to maybe ask the panel just some 30 seconds on closing comments. Maybe we can start on this end and go down the line. We'll start with you, Raina.
Thank you very much. So I would like to point on the first panel also. In the first panel we talk about shortage of workers, about 7 million worker shortage. But the International Energy Agency provides us with the reference. They state that oil and gas industry currently 12 million of employers work for oil and gas industry. So to requalify this labor force, really we can achieve this just transition target in a smooth way and left no one behind. And I think in oil and gas industry, we can move to this such an important technology as hydrogen, and we can move to carbon capture utilization and storage, which is really very important also to offset this, emissions from, not from only from oil and gas industry, but from energy production also, and taking into account Azerbaijan capacity with geological research. And the 200 hours somehow story, oil and gas production and depleted oil and gas wells. I think we can achieve this, and also to use the geothermal energy. And I just would like to point on the question about the hydrogen production. Actually, hydrogen in use in Azerbaijan for a long period of time already, but it was the gray hydrogen that is from natural gas, and it's used mostly for refinery purposes to actually purify process with diesel and gasoline production. But now we would like to just substitute it by the green one, and I think this is very important to understand that it was already in use. Yes, it's endangered, but we have all security rules in place and all these standards already developed. So thanks to international community to provide us with, we should only establish this. And also very important for my point of view to identify the gaps for education in country by country, taking into account also their industry in place in this country, and it should be the special approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raina. Signum, I'm so sorry.
I think on all this debate on just energy transition, three things are very important. The first point is that skills is at the central stage of the discussion. It has to be it's very important. And the second point is that it's very important to build the skills up the value chain, especially for these countries that we don't want to leave further behind. And these skills are less likely to be displaced and can be easily repurposed across sector. And the third point I want to leave you with is that we need a vision, a strategy for scaling up skill development, especially in these commodity-dependent developing countries. A vision that is fit for purpose, that is fit for energy transition. Because it's not only that the oil can be stranded, but also the human capital. And this is a $1 trillion question. Thank you.
I think from my interview as well to what you said, as well about having the right skills. So I think we already mentioned for me it's more importance of collaboration. How could we work all together to make sure that we have the right way, like we think about having the right skills, and let us make it in a sustainable way, that we make sure that those skills are transferable and we can use them everywhere around the globe to accelerate this transition.
Thank you very much. Nikolai?
Yes, I would also like to add to this collaboration topic that it's a long journey for all of us, and we need to go through it together. And we don't understand still a lot of issues, problems that we would meet, because most of them we see are in the details. But we don't have any other way. So we need to pass through it. We need to learn how to live with this, because it's our goal. That's what I want to say. So let's hope it will be an interesting journey.
Very good. Let me summarize just real quick. I think by combining, from what I've heard on stage, by combining reskilling initiatives, educational reforms, and collaborations between government and industry, Azerbaijan can ensure that its workforce remains competitive and adaptable in the face of energy diversification while fostering new opportunities for economic growth. Please, I'd like for you all to thank this panel for all of their information that they shared with us. and for just being on the panel. Thank you so much.